Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I wanted to share my tentative TBR for the Self Care Readathon that I'm running next month. So it runs in the month of June, and as we're getting a little bit closer, I thought I'd share what I think I'm going to read. Because I have a pretty small TBR, most of the books that are in my pile right now are all of my books on my TBR. I've only got 3 that aren't. So I'm going to allow a little bit of flexibility. I will read all of my prompts, but I might change them up. If I end up reading one of the books, I'll choose another one. So I thought I'd run through the ones I've got and what prompts I'm using them for. So the first one is At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop, and this is the prompt for Physical, a book with movement on the cover, because we have a little soldier running down the bottom. This one is on the Booker International, and was the other one I was really interested to get to. It is a fairly short read, so this one might be the one I pick up first. The next is Psychological, and this book I bought specifically for this purpose, and the prompt is to read any book but to take 10 minutes to reflect on it. So I chose Me and White Supremacy because of the fact that throughout the book there are prompts for reflection, so that felt like the perfect book to choose for the psychological prompt. So this one is a definite. This is definitely one I'm going to save for the readathon. Then for emotional, the book I've been saving is The Lying Lives of Adults by Elena Ferrante. I'm pretty confident I will use this one because I am very intimidated by Elena Ferrante. I feel like everyone in the bookish literary world loves her, and I'm scared if I don't, I won't fit the mold of the things I should like. And I'm almost worried because there's so much hype around her being so amazing that I almost feel like I can't pick up a book. So I tried to challenge it by picking one up that I knew was a standalone and had less pressure around it than some of the other ones, in terms of some of her trilogies are so popular it almost feels like I can't even start it because I would panic about it. So this feels like a really good one to choose for emotional, which is read a book that makes you feel something towards it before you've read the book. I definitely feel anxious, I would say, to read this book, and I feel quite a lot of pressure to love this book. So this one feels like a pretty solid one to keep for emotional. Okay, so social, read a book that features a healthy relationship. I knew I was going to struggle with this one. None of the books on my TBR that I'm aware of feature a healthy relationship at all. So I think I'm going to have to try and ask you guys for some suggestions. I've been thinking about video ideas a lot recently, and one of the things I've been thinking about is why I'm so drawn to stories that are darker and why I'm so drawn to stories of relationships which don't function. Basically, every book I choose to read seems to have some sort of division in the way that the relationship functions. So I'd be interested to know what your favourite books are that are not just fluffy, but that have a healthy root at them. I might have to do a bit more research on it and try and find one to buy or find one to borrow that fits with it. But I'd like some suggestions. Financial. I'm going to talk about financial as well, actually, in the same gambit, because that's the one I don't have yet. So that is to read a book that you didn't have to spend money on to acquire. And for this, I'm planning on trying to re-access my local library. I do have a library card, and I'm pretty sure I still remember the PIN, but it is somewhere that I went a few times to study pre-COVID, and it's now back open. It is a really small library, so the challenge for me is trying to figure out how I actually use the system to order books into my local library, because I can pretty much guarantee just the size of it, it's tiddly tiny. It's 10 bookshelves, if that, in the whole library. That there won't be too much in there that I will be interested in reading, or too much stuff that's my type of stuff. But I do know it links in with Bristol and Bath library system, so I should be able to order in a lot of books, but I've never actually done it. The one where I used to live, which was in Taunton, had a pretty decent sized library, so they had some new release stuff, they had stuff that was a couple years old. So for financial, a challenge for me is to actually interact with my library system, and it may be that from some of the recommendations I can find some books on healthy relationships to borrow. So that's kind of the plan. That's why those two tie together, and I haven't quite done it yet. But I'm on leave from today. It's halfway through Friday, and I've had toil in the afternoon. All of next week I have off. My exam's on the 27th, and I want to sort the library stuff this week. So I thought I'd ask for some recommendations sooner. It also means you get a couple of videos from me in a go. and yeah, hopefully find something that I will enjoy. Then for professional, the prompt is to read a non-fiction book. The one that I think I'm going to read, but I cycle a lot of non-fiction in, so I know I'll have something. I always have non-fiction on there. But the one I think I'm going to read is Between Light and Storm, How We Live with Other Species, by Esther Wolfstone. And this book looks at the relationship between people and animals. I could potentially pair this or read a book with an environment on the cover, which is environmental, because of the fact there's a little birdie on the cover and that kind of feels like an environment. But I want to go a little bit more literal with my interpretation and actually find a room or a space. But I think this is the one I'm likely to read for non-fiction, but as you guys know, I probably read like 2/3 fiction, 1/3 non-fiction, so I'm not worried about if I read this one ahead of time. So for environment, the book I think I'm going to choose is The Girl at the Door, because we have a room and a person within the room there. I feel pretty certain I'll read this one, but again, if I happen to tear through my 3 books in my time off and I get to these ones sooner, that's absolutely fine. I will replace them. Obviously you'll see what I'm reading. I'm going to try and film like my progress on the challenges and put it in a vlog, so if it does change, you'll know what it's going to change to. You could take it as a hint for the kind of stuff that I may be reading. So a few maybes on this list and a couple of definites. And then the last one I haven't spoken about yet, I've got 2 that are potentials, which is to read a book that explores an idea you don't agree with, and that's for spiritual. So the first one, they're kind of similar-ish. The first one I thought was Fake Accounts. So whilst I think I agree with the protagonist, the relationship that she has with her partner, who is a right-wing conspiracy theorist, I definitely don't agree with. So I thought that could be quite interesting to have a go at. And then on a really similar theme, I've actually started this one, but it is quite chunky and I might need a bit of convincing to like work my way through it, because it's a really big fat non-fiction. Is White Skin, Black Fuel by Andres Malm, and this talks about how the right wing, like racism, interacts with the climate movement and how the 2 things get twinned a lot in extreme right-wing politics, and I think this one would actually fit really well. So we'll see whether or not I'm still kind of working my way through it by the time we get there, and I might use this readathon to prompt me to finish this one off next month. I've had it for probably a month and a bit, maybe a month, and I'm only 100 pages in and it's 500 pages long. So I have 2 choices. If I manage to finish this one first, then probably it'll be Fake Accounts. So those are the books that I am planning on reading, or most of them, for the Self Care Readathon. I enjoy like putting together TBRs and stuff, but it is more challenging when you have a small TBR. There's less like pressure maybe to get to stuff in a certain time, because you kind of get to everything in a certain time. But I put loads of books on my Goodreads like want to buy list, so if I accidentally or on purpose like read any that would fit in the challenge, I have lots of backups available. I'd love to know if you're joining in, what books you are thinking of reading. As I say, please leave me some recommendations for your favourite books that feature a healthy relationship. I feel like it's bad that I'm struggling with this. I think that might say something about me that I might need to figure my way through with the self-care prompts. But I'd love to hear what books you have enjoyed and that you think I might enjoy that feature that kind of a relationship. I'll see you guys again soon in my next video, and look after yourselves until then. Bye!